All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Welcome back from the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving celebration as well as the weekend, any time that you may have had off, your time with your family. Guys, we got a lot to get to. Obviously, there's been plenty of stories. I haven't had time to talk about them, or I haven't been on air to talk about them, but I'm here now, and there's so much that I want to get to because there are so many things that are going on in the news that are so crucial for you to know and understand. But basically, I'm going to focus on a macro thing. For those of you that know me, for those of you that have listened to me on shows, whether it be Dennis Prager's show, Mike Gallagher's show, Larry Elder's show, I focus typically on a macro issue and I squeeze the micro issues in. And right now, the issue that we have in America is we have a bunch of people that seriously hate our country, and we have to address that. We need to go back to an era of the Ellis Island immigration process. It's really what we need to do. And so I'm going to be focusing in on that because I think it is extremely crucial. And I think it speaks to a lot of the issues that we see today. Don't third world my America. That is going to be the theme of today. Do not third world my America, guys. And we're headed there. And I'm going to fit in, again, a bunch of stories. We're going to talk about, obviously, the National Guardsman, Andrew Wolf, still fighting for his life. Sarah Beckstrom, only 20 years old, sadly lost her life. A hero volunteered her time so that others could go and be home with their family for the Thanksgiving holiday. There she was, 20 years old, the future bright in front of her, and then she's shot dead by an Islamic terrorist. And so I want to talk about that in this program that we had, this asylums program for some of these Afghanis that helped us out in Afghan. Man, we have to take a deep, hard look at that, not to mention the Biden administration and the nearly 100,000 or approximately 100,000 Afghanis that they brought in after the debacle at Abbey Gate, after the debacle of the Afghanistan withdrawal. So we got to talk about all that. The National Guardsmen, the Somali story, what's happening in Minnesota. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about that before we went on break for the holiday. What's happening in District 7 as I sit here tonight. Voters are casting their votes in that particular race. I want to talk about that. And I do think it's important. And I do think that it could be a bellwether for this point in time in history. I do want to say, hopefully the Republican wins. The Republican should win. Frankly, I don't expect a Republican to win by 22 points like President Trump won. I just think that's seriously unrealistic. And I know a lot of conservatives are making hay about that. I just think the times are different. This always happens off-year elections, midterm elections. The party that's in power usually does worse. That's the way that it happens. However, this is a red district. All right. And so this district should be won by the Republican in the race. So we'll get to that. But I don't expect them to win 22 points. Simply because I think people, frankly, a lot of people came out to vote for Trump. I don't think that same enthusiasm sits for people in Congress. I just don't think it does. And then you have a lot of people that are frustrated, blue collar workers, even though the economy is doing better than it was. A lot of people aren't necessarily happy with where it is, blue collar workers. And remember, Trump brought a lot of people to his coalition that Republicans didn't typically have. And considering that, a lot of these people don't do a great job of showing out up in the midterms. So those are some things that we have to keep in mind. Having said that, I do think it's a snapshot of what's going on today. All right. So the National Guardsmen, we got to get into that story. The Somalis, the Somali story, the Minneapolis or Minnesota fraud story. We've got to get into that. The Venezuela drug boats. We got to get into that as well. Again, you guys know my stance on that. I'm all for it. I really do believe that the seditious six. I believe this is a distraction, and I think Republicans better be careful how they frame things. Listen, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth better do things above water. But I like what President Trump is doing with Venezuela. I like what he's doing in the Western Hemisphere. I've explained this before. This is the Monroe Doctrine, and I really appreciate that. What I am a little concerned about is I don't want to give I am concerned about the East. I am concerned about our adversaries. I am concerned about Russia. I am concerned, even though we put a major dent in Iran, North Korea, all these types of people, China. I want to make sure that what we're doing is, and I've heard rumors, I hope this is not true, that we're strengthening the Western Hemisphere, which I absolutely love, and we would cede some of the Eastern Hemisphere to China. For example, China, what we let China take Taiwan. I say the answer should be heck no. You let Taiwan fight, you let Japan fight. I don't even know that that's true. I'm going to clarify that. But those are some of the things that I've heard. And I don't think President Trump would fall for that or go for that. But those are some of the things that I've been hearing. So I hope that they aren't true. Now, having said that, we got to get down into the nitty gritty. Victor Davis Hanson, as he is accustomed to do, wrote a fabulous column at AM Greatness, and I want to make sure that I go through it because I think it is extremely important, and I think it puts everything that we're witnessing into context. And again, the thing for this show: don't third world my America. Now, all of these stories, whether we're talking about the National Guardsmen, whether we're talking about the fraud in Minnesota, whether we're talking about this District 7 race. Carl, how could you say this District 7 race is about third worlding my America? Well, I'll get to that. But I promise you this, it is. Venezuelan drug boats being blasted out of the water. All of this. All right. So this is extremely important. I want to play a couple of clips for you right off the top. And then I want to get into this column with Victor Davis Hanson because, again, I think this explains the macro. Now, he wrote a column for AM Greatness entitled Confronting Anti-Ellis Island Immigration. Again, confronting anti-Ellis, I can't speak today. Confronting anti-Ellis Island immigration. This is an extremely great column. Again, Victor Davis Hanson. He does this all the time, but I think he puts this into a perspective that not many people are capable of doing. And so I want to go through it, and I want to tie these stories together. Let me play a couple of clips that you may already be familiar with. This is President Trump. This is clip number 1. If you can get it ready, Gabe. This is Trump, who spoke out or flamed basically a liberal reporter who asked him why he's blaming Biden for the D.C. terrorist attack. And this is what the left is going to continue to do. I want you to understand this, but let's play cut number 1, please, Gabe.
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked, there were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go. We were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision, and we would have left from Bagram, and we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake. But they were incompetent, yeah.
Okay, so now some people watching that clip might get offended by what President Trump said. Are you a stupid person? No, she's not stupid. She's a propagandist. That's what I believe. I mean, seriously, that's why a lot of these reporters ask these particular questions. This is the goal of the Democrat Party. This is the goal of the liberal media, the propaganda media. They want to put President Trump and his administration on the defense. They want to make sure that he loses in the midterms. They want to revise history literally in real time. And that's what we see happening. That's what we saw occurring there. You mean to tell me that this chick is going to ask about why Trump is blaming Biden for the D.C. terror attack when this guy loaded up a bunch of Afghanistan people that weren't vetted and allowed them to stay into the country? Yes, I know that under the Trump administration, this guy, because he worked with the CIA, was able to stay into the country. And under the Trump administration, that was okay for the time being because they have no way of vetting these people thoroughly. But the point of the matter is he probably would have never been allowed to come into the country where Trump won the election, which listen, all right, we can go through that in 2020. I mean, this is insane what's happening. So we got to talk about Ellis Island. Listen, here's where I'm gonna bring this in, because again, all of this is related. Victor Davis Hanson column confronting anti-Ellis Island immigration. Did you guys know for 62 years, between 1892 and 1954, all right, 62 years, you had 12 million immigrants that arrived at Ellis Island or came through Ellis Island to enter the United States. All right. So that's nearly 200,000 legal entries per year. When we get back, I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to absolutely astound you. And I'm going to make it clear to you that what's happening and what happened at our borders is an attack on America by the Biden administration and by the Democrat Party. This is the Carl Jackson Show. Hey guys, Carl Jackson here for MyPillow. A major retail chain just canceled a massive order, leaving MyPillow with an overstock of classic MyPillows. Now it's your game. For a limited time, MyPillow is offering their entire classic collection at true wholesale prices. You get the standard MyPillow for just $17.98. If you want more, upgrade to queen size for only $22.98 or king size for $24.98. Snag body pillows for just $29.98. And versatile multi-use pillows for just $9.98. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl, that is CARL, or call 800-858-0263. All right. Plus, when you order totals $75 or more, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts, no strings attached. That's right. Premium pillows at unbeatable prices and bonus gifts to top it all off. Don't wait. Head to mypillow.com right now or call 800-858-0263. And don't forget to use the promo code Carl, CARL, to grab your standard MyPillow for just $17.98. That is insane. Can't beat that with a bat. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to my podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Google, we're on Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. If you would help us on YouTube and Rumble and Spotify. Spotify apparently has great video, a great way to watch the podcast there too. So please connect there as well. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me. All things social media at Carl Jackson Show or at the Carl Jackson Show. I'm on X or Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. If you would go there, I would certainly appreciate it. So don't third world my America. Listen, I'm gonna tell you straight. I want the Afghanis that came into this country in those planes under the Biden administration. I want many of them gone, if not all of them gone. I think the vetting process should start back in Afghanistan. It should have never started here. When all of those people were dropping off the planes, the Biden administration and all of his generals and the Democrat Party were desperate not to look like the feckless weaklings they are when it came to foreign policy. So they wanted to make these Afghanis that they allowed to come into the country unvetted, they wanted to make them a bunch of props. Look at all the people that we brought into the country. That's insane. The Somali story. Trump said something that offended some people. I don't care. Somalis, if you're not going to immigrate into the United States of America, this is not an Islamic country. This is a Judeo-Christian country. If you don't want to assimilate, if you're going to steal our money, if you're not going to work hard and pay your taxes where you don't have to depend upon Uncle Sam, you need to get to stepping. You need to leave this country. I am sick and tired of it. And then you have this chick, what's her name in District 7? Bain. I don't even remember her name. Excuse me. I will get to that in just a second. But this race, it's about, I say again to this race, don't third world my America. How can you say that about District 7? How can you say that about an American? That doesn't make any sense. It makes total sense. This chick is a socialist. This chick is a Marxist. This chick is another AOC. She's another Ma'am Danny. You want her to win in Tennessee? Guys, we got to stop this nonsense. So it's amazing. All these people that have fallen for this nonsense about socialism, making things affordable, redistributing wealth. Yeah, we want to make things affordable. Socialism doesn't do it because they have to tax you more. This is an indictment on our college system. This is an indictment on K through 12 that people would even bother voting for a woman like this. And I do think Republicans have to be careful. I do think that this race could be a snapshot. I expect this race to be close. I'd never expected this guy, and forgive me, I got to get you the names, but I never expected the gentleman that's running, I believe Van Epps is his name, to win by the same margin that President Trump has won. I just think that's unrealistic. I just think it's unrealistic. Because President Trump, again, his coalition of voters are simply different. And I think a lot of the people that he gained are frankly not going to be showing up to the polls. Sadly, that's just the way that it is. However, I hope enough people show up to get a clear and decisive win. And I do think that this race will send a message that Republicans have to be aware of. Are they going to be able to enthuse the base enough to come out in the midterm election? I'm not sure. If the economy isn't going, I'm just going to be straight with you. If the economy isn't going swimmingly at that point in time, and literally, guys, it can't be. I heard some conservatives say today, listen, by the next election, the economy better be good. No, that's too late. It better be by the summer. People better have some time to experience the feeling of a financial comeback. And I know that President Trump is doing a good job of making some things cheaper, a lot of things cheaper. Gas, the price of groceries, and gas and energy will impact everything. But with this AI race that we're going through, that's causing things to surge in price, if you will. Obviously, the inflation issue that we inherited under the Biden administration is still an issue. The tariffs are an issue. They do make things. I'm glad that President Trump is bringing some of that tariff money into our coffers, reducing inflation, but it does cause costs to rise. And then some companies will have to let go of employees if they can't afford it. So it does have an impact. And I think conservatives do a disservice by saying that it doesn't. It does some good, the tariffs do, but also it causes some headaches. They cause some headaches. And it's really as simple as that. But I love the fact that President Trump was using tariffs in order to bring about fair trade. All right. So I made that clear. Let me get back to Ellis Island because this is extremely important, and we will have and I'll get back to District 7 right now. For whatever reason, it's right here somewhere in my formerly fingerprinted fingertips. I don't know why I don't have this story right in front of me. Oh, here it is. This from Axios. Actually, before I go back to that, let me mention this. This is from Axios. They call it, the title is An Unlikely House Battleground. You're talking about Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, was designed just a few years ago to hand Republicans an easy win. Obviously, this year, it's going to be a little tougher. Republicans and Democrats alike are looking at the special election today for a seat as a critical bellwether heading into the 2026 midterms. Now, I believe that the economy cures all. I really do believe that the economy cures all. If people are feeling like they're finally able to get ahead in life, and again, I understand President Trump inherited this economy. The big, beautiful bill hasn't kicked in yet. Voters, as much as I know this, political nerds like you know this, if you're watching this podcast, voters that don't pay attention to politics 24/7 aren't going to give a flip. All that's going to matter to them is, can I go out? Can I afford groceries? Can I afford my rent? Can I afford a car? That's what it's going to come down to. President Trump can do virtually anything else within the law and within the bounds of his presidency if the economy is good. So Trump again won that district by 22 points. But the race has gotten pretty tight, and obviously drawing national attention. So you have Republican Matt Van Epps is his name, leading the Democrat Afton Bain by just 2 points. This is according to an Emerson poll, which is apparently a pretty good polling company. So Democrats are emboldened after the wave of elections that we saw in Virginia and New Jersey, and New York City. And I know a lot of Republicans, I've heard Republicans, conservatives, influencers say, well, I mean, obviously it was a blue state, and we should know. I'm sorry. I think that's nonsense, guys. President Trump won a coalition of voters like we've never seen before. And that included Democrats that felt disenfranchised. That included union people. That included young people. Many people that voted for Mamdani. Even Trump himself admitted many voted for Trump as well. But because the affordability issue is such a big deal, and obviously in New York City, I think Republicans have done a horrible job messaging there. Democrats run New York City. And frankly, I think even Trump, I think the messaging there was weak. I wish he would have hit that every time. Well, often when Mamdani was sitting in the White House with them. Democrats completely run New York City from the governor's mansion. New York, from the governor's mansion to New York City. I mean, obviously there's some counties in between that are red, but for the most part, that is a blue state. That is a blue state. Having said that, there are still some people that should have shown up for, I hate to say Cuomo, but Sliwa, Cuomo. I hate saying Cuomo because I think he should have dropped out of the race. Quite frankly, I think it should have been a head-to-head race between Sliwa and Mamdani. But nonetheless, this race is going to be extremely important. And I don't want this chick to win, this Afton Bain, because she's going to third world my America. What do you think? What will socialism do? The people that have come to this country, that have risked their lives to come to this country, have fled socialism. They fled socialism. The people that came through Ellis Island, they wanted a better life. They wanted a better life. So they came to America for opportunity, for capitalism, economic freedom, for all the promises that were embodied, the American dream that were embodied by the American dream, the melting pot. There's podcasters out there on the left and the right, mostly on the left, that are talking about, I don't like this term melting pot. Well, you're an idiot because you don't understand what America stands for. America is the only country in the world where ethnicities from all around the world came to this country legally, flocked here. Oh, with slavery. Well, listen, post-slavery, still, all right, and we had Reconstruction. Republicans were the party that ended slavery. Post-slavery, you had people that came here through Ellis Island that wanted to be a part of this fabric, that wanted this American fabric, that wanted to be a part of this melting pot. And what you have in candidates like Afton Bain, like AOC, like Mamdani, they are trying to fundamentally transform America. So it's a nation where we have a bunch of takers rather than people that are innovators, rather than people that are seeking the American dream, that are responsible, that are accountable, that are taking care of themselves. They're trying to transform it so this will be a one-party nation. And if it's a one-party nation, it'll look like Cuba. It'll look like Venezuela. It'll look like many of these nations that many of these immigrants fled when they wanted to come here. So we are a melting pot, e pluribus unum, from many one. That's the way that I want it to remain. We're going to have a hard time doing that if socialists keep winning. All right, so this anti-Ellis Island immigration. So again, just to remind you, 62 years, 1892 to 1954, approximately 12 million immigrants arrived at Ellis Island to enter the U.S. That's nearly 200,000 legal entries per year. They were all registered. Notice the difference. All of them were registered. Every single one were documented, right? They came through one port. They were given some basic health exams. They arrived both rich and poor alike, arrived in the same way, white and non-white. Remember, there was a lot of racism. Even still, people were divided, Italians, all this kind of stuff. Nonetheless, Italians, blacks, whites, you name it. Nonetheless, as time went on, as these people assimilated into the United States, they became a part of the fabric. They accepted America as a melting pot. And even though their origin was from another country, they essentially became American. That's not what we have today. Without exception, everyone that came through Ellis Island came through the country legally. And many people were sent back because they had to be able to take care of themselves, or they had to have sponsors that would take care of them, make sure that they weren't a burden on the rest of the Americans. That's not what we're looking at today. We stopped using Ellis Island once the immigration declined. But I'm telling you, this is something that we need to return to. It is the antidote to open borders. Thanks to Joe Biden and his DH Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, we'll never know how many illegals actually entered the country. Between, what was it, 2021 and 2025? We don't know how many illegals came into the country. Remember all the gotaways that we never accounted for? Some people say 10 million. Some people say 12 million. Some people say 15 million. Some people say it's upwards of 20 million. We'll never know. This is why I appreciate the ICE raids. And I know a lot of people get a little squirmish when it comes to the ICE raids. It just looks bad. Some Latinos are turning against them. I do believe that. Listen, here's something you need to understand about the ICE raids. The ICE raids, let me give you a definition for affordability. Deport illegal immigrants, and you will reduce healthcare costs. You will reduce housing costs when you don't have millions of illegal immigrants competing for resources inside of the United States, competing for living spaces inside of the United States. Carl, you're a racist. This is so mean. No, it's not mean. This is kind. No other nation in the world does this. We are the most generous nation in the world when it comes to legal immigration. And frankly, I think that needs to slow down. We've got 1 million people that come into this country legally every year. And then we have this influx of 10 to 20 million illegals that the Biden administration intentionally allowed to invade this country. They wanted them to because they wanted a permanent underclass. Illegals stopped respecting our immigration laws. I mean, just think about what we've seen, the videos that we saw at the border where people were disrespecting, mocking, even assaulting some of our border agents. The Biden administration didn't care. 10 and 12 foreign nationals at least came through. ICE and Border Patrol agents, again, were assaulted. They were mocked by the illegals at the border. Immigration officers, remember this, were retaliated against if they tried to enforce the law under Biden. In just 4 years, this is an astonishing stat that I want you to hear. This is, to hear it put in this way is just astounding. In just 4 years, Biden and the Democrat Party had invited in almost as many illegal immigrants as had entered through Ellis Island over that period of 62 years. 4 years. In 4 years, the Biden administration, by bringing illegal immigrants in, not legal immigrants, surpassed what we saw in 7 decades at Ellis Island. That is insane. That is insane. And then we wonder about, oh man, they didn't care about vetting. We wonder about what transpired in D.C. Well, how could something like this happen? You've got lefties blaming the National Guard. The National Guardsmen didn't have anything to do with this. Andrew Wolf is fighting for his life. Sarah Beckstrom, again, lost her life. She was shot. I mean, they were both shot point blank range. I believe Sarah Beckstrom was shot, just 20 years old, in the chest and then point blank in the head. Andrew Wolf, again, fighting for his life right now. Let's play this. Let's play clip number 2. I believe this is President Trump paying his respects to the National Guard, who are just amazing people, obviously. Clip number 2, please.
I want to just pay my respects to the National Guard and those 2 incredible people. One is no longer with us. One is looking down and loves her parents. I spoke to her parents the other night, and she's looking down, and she's so proud of her country, and she's so loved her parents so much, and her parents couldn't believe what happened, could not believe it, what happened to their baby, what happened to their daughter. She's gone. And we have another one who's fighting for his life, as you know, and he's a fabulous young man, both of them were the best everything, the best of their class, And maybe he'll be okay. He's gone through a lot, but maybe he'll be okay. But I want to tell you what the National Guard's done, along with other people, including our military, to D.C. Just if we look at D.C., We have a safe city again.
Okay, so that's President Trump. Just giving honor to the National Guardsmen. Obviously, Sarah Beckstrom that lost her life, and then Andrew Wolf, who is still fighting dearly. Now, I want to take you to another clip, and we're going to be going back and forth because I believe that all of these stories are intertwined. They do not exist in a vacuum. Whether we're talking about, again, the National Guardsmen, one murdered, one still hanging on for dear life, whether we're talking about the fraud in Minnesota, whether we're talking about District 7, whether we're talking about the attack on Pete Hegseth and why they're doing it. I believe in part it's a distraction. I almost believe that Republicans need a canned answer to that. The investigations, if they want to investigate the House, feel free to do so. But I think that blew up in their face earlier today as more information comes out about that initial attack on a drug boat on September 2nd. We'll get into that momentarily, but I want to go to clip number 8 if we could, and then I'll tie it back into the information that I just shared about from Victor Davis Hansen's column. Again, in just 4 years, the Biden administration allowed more illegal immigrants to come into this country than we saw in over 6 decades of legal immigration come into this country through Ellis Island. Let's play clip number 8, please, Gabe.
We have paused all asylum adjudications, and then, of course, the special immigrant visas, which we know many Afghans utilize to come into the country under the Biden administration, have also now been paused. And I would just point out one more time that the Biden administration was responsible for the original sin that led to this tragic killing last week, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was responsible for Operation Allies Welcome, which is something that this White House and the people behind this podium in the last administration fully and wholeheartedly embraced. And they assured the American people there would be no risk or no harm to them. And as I just laid out for you in those many examples, that unfortunately and tragically has not turned out to be the truth. Just ask the families of these 2 brave National Guardsmen, one who is no longer with us and one who continues to fight for his life. So I know the president is wholeheartedly focused on this effort, and I think unfortunately these events do remind us why it's so important that the president's mass deportation operation continues.
Okay, I want to go to clip number 3. Just let me know when it's ready, because this is speaking specifically of Operation Allies Welcome. Let's go to clip number 3.
You asked how many people came in. We think up to 100,000 people came in under Operation Allies Welcome that may be here that we don't know necessarily who they are or why they came to this country. If they came here truly maybe for asylum, or if they were someone who had nefarious ideas on how to attack Americans or to undermine our way of life. What I would say on the vetting process is that has to happen before they ever come here. They have to be vetted before we allow them to get on a plane and come to the United States of America, so that we know what their intentions are and who they are. And in order for us to do that, I know from the Department of Homeland Security standpoint, we have to have another government and another country that cooperates with us, that shares information with us, that will help us check dates of service and collect biometric information and data. That wasn't done by Joe Biden. It wasn't done by his administration. They did a vetting process, but it wasn't thorough. They didn't look at social media platforms, and that's all of the changes that President Trump is implementing.
Okay, so again, this is Operation, what is it called? Operation Allies Welcome. That's insane. To let these many let these many people on into this country unvetted was just insane, and everyone knew that this was going to happen, that stuff like this was going to happen. I listened to Colonel Alan West in an interview. I believe it was with Brian Kilmeade earlier, and actually some people that worked with him were vetted and allowed into the country, but there was an understanding out there. And I heard another veteran say this too, that listen, there were some people that they would work with in whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan. Some of them may have been great, but some of them, they had to be careful that they didn't share a bunch of or all the information, because these people might show allegiance to the Americans, but also show allegiance to the terrorist organizations overseas. And obviously that's going to be the case. And unfortunately, Biden didn't vet them well, so more terrorist attacks are coming. All right, so welcome back again. Listen, what's happening in the United States is an abomination. What the Democrat Party have been able to pull off for the sake of literally, they just want more votes. They want more power. It's absolutely sickening. Again, we were talking about the National Guardsmen. One died, unfortunately, Sarah Beckstrom. Andrew Wolf, again, still fighting for dear life. I want to get to this Minnesota fraud story because I want these people to go home. It's racist. This is what these people do. These immigrants have come to the United States of America, and they understand something that the immigrants of Ellis Island didn't understand or didn't play. The people that came through Ellis Island wanted to be a part of the melting pot. You see many of these immigrants, legal and illegal, but legal even, as some of these Somalis, temporary protected status is gone for them, so thank God. But frankly, I want these people, if they don't assimilate, gone. I know that is not going to happen, but yeah, I do want them gone. And I don't think it's racist. Don't fall for this nonsense that you're an Islamophobe. Don't fall for this nonsense that you're a racist if you say that Somalis don't belong in the United States. That experiment has not bode well for the United States whatsoever. Bringing people in from these hot zones across the Middle East has not worked well. And I'm not saying it's the rule. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions to the rule. I know some military men that will vouch for the people that helped them out when they were in the Middle East fighting a war to this day and swear by it. And that's fine. But that doesn't mean that there might be some others, perhaps many others, which is what I suspect, that would, again, pledge allegiance, work with Americans overseas, but at the same time, probably give information to terrorist networks to kill Americans. And now they're here inside of the United States. And how many of them are plotting? Apparently this guy, the terrorist, apparently that terrorist that murdered Sarah Beckstrom and also injured Andrew Wolf, and again, pray that he's alive. Apparently, he was radicalized inside of the United States of America. Now, I gotta tell you this. Okay, maybe that is the case. Maybe that is the case. And reportedly, I mean, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said as much. But he was also susceptible to being radicalized. Why? Because he has a different worldview, and he saw war. Right? He saw craziness. I think he was only 5 years old, if I recall correctly, when 9/11 happened, but he still grew up in the Middle East. He grew up in a war environment, and that's all he knew. So I think it's easy to radicalize people like this. I really do. It's just insane to me. So more topics in the news as well. I'm going to make sure that I do cover them. Obviously, Trump gives an ultimatum to Maduro. I think this is extremely important. President Trump gave Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro a strongly worded ultimatum. As many of you know, his tensions have flared up with the South American nation telling him to resign and leave or else. And I want that to happen. This, according to a report during a call between Trump and Maduro. This is according to the New York Post. The socialist president demanded that he be allowed to maintain control of Venezuela's military if he paved the way for free elections there. Citing the Miami Herald cited some sources. Maduro also reportedly sought global amnesty for all of his alleged crimes, but Trump refused on both counts. So listen. I think this. I think he needs to go. Hugh Hewitt, our colleague and a constitutional attorney and has taught con law for decades. This is what he had to say about all the people decrying Pete Hegseth. And by the way, that story blew up today. They were trying to say that these guys were shipwrecked. Some Democrats were calling it a shipwreck when it came to Venezuela. And again, guys, all of this is about not third worlding our America. These people are allowing cocaine, fentanyl, whatever else to come into our country. They might not be the biggest problem in South America, but they are a huge problem. And I think what President Trump wants, listen, even if the leader of that nation isn't necessarily the greatest person, let's say, we want to make sure that he's not more cozy with China than they are with the United States when they're in our hemisphere. And I think this is extremely important. So for those of you out there also talking about Pete Hegseth, listen, again, that story was blown out of the water. Red State reported on it earlier. You heard the press conference with Trump's 9th cabinet meeting that occurred earlier. Basically, Hegseth, they were saying that two strikes were ordered by Hegseth And then he said, kill everyone after he found out there were survivors. Turned out the only video that he saw was the missile hitting the first initial ship. They didn't see survivors. All they saw were flames. And then you had the general underneath that gave the order to, I believe it was a general underneath to go ahead and finish it off to make sure that the boat was sank. So here's what Hugh Hewitt said. Many gun law experts on X have many opinions on Trump's decision to order strikes on drug boats, and I'm quoting, they worry he may escalate to, quote, kinetic actions, close quote, against Maduro, cartels, and other narco states. They seek to persuade that President Trump is violating international law, quote unquote, but they do not evidence even a basic understanding of Article 2's grant of authorities to the president. And by the way, we are America. We don't abide by international law. It's nonsense. All right. All presidents, the ones they love and applaud, and those that they hate and boo, Hugh Hewitt says, if and when Congress directs the president to stop, then the issue would be joined. Until then, the key is 89 years ago, SCOTUS summarized the power of the president when it declared, quote, political society cannot endure without a supreme will somewhere, close quote, and added, quote, sovereignty is never held in suspense, close quote. The reality of all these cases and the pending decision in the tariffs case is that every president of the United States has vast powers in foreign affairs and courts, and especially pundits, he writes, do not. The criminal nations poisoning our people should know that they should know that and not rely on X or Twitter experts, is what he writes. And guys, again, I'm totally okay with these drug boats being blown up. I want to make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, because frankly, I don't want them to come after Pete Hegseth. And I'll say this too, and this might offend some of you guys. Listen, Trump is a character and a populist and a great president in and of itself. Plenty of personality. I don't need political theater from Pete Hegseth. All I need is performance. And I think Pete Hegseth, I would say this with Kash Patel, FBI, I would say this with Kristi Noem, they better focus on that, because we need some wins in all of these particular areas, and we need to start bragging about those wins as well. All right, so again, but that's been blown out of the water. Pete Hegseth he never even saw survivors. Apparently, he didn't even order the second strike. He ordered an initial strike, but he was totally okay with the gentleman under his that he was over basically finishing out the strike. As a matter of fact, this is from the White House. The administration has been accused of a potential war crime after the second hit on a drug boat. This, according to Red State, after the initial hit did not completely destroy the intended target. The Wall Street Journal, the White House said Monday that the U.S. military conducted 2 strikes on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean in September. Of course, deepening questions about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's role in an operation that led to the killing of 2 survivors. Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, the head of Special Operations Command, was acting legally under authority to use lethal force granted by Hegseth in conducting the attacks on the boat, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. So again, that was Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. He did his job. And apparently all of these people, before they do strikes like this, have to consult with attorneys before this happens within the military. So that, in fact, I believe makes it legal. But I do believe this. There's no doubt in my mind that they better dot every I, and I'm speaking of Trump administration, and cross every T, because the left would love to be able to go after them. They would love to be able to impeach Trump. They would love to be able to go after any one of his cabinet members. So you want to keep that in. You want to keep that in mind. This Minnesota fraud case, honestly, and the Somalis, that situation has got me so frustrated. It's absolutely insane. You got the Treasury Department is now investigating claims that the Minnesota taxpayer funds were stolen by fraudulent nonprofits and rerouted to Al-Shabaab. You got now Governor Tim Walz implemented, because apparently he knew what was going on. He was warned of what was going on with all of the corruption with the Somalis inside of Minneapolis, I believe in particular. And basically he turned a blind eye when they threatened racism. But Bessent wants to make sure that this stuff is investigated. Trump, in his announcement on November 21st, also called Minnesota a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity and accused Tim Walz of failing to deter such crimes in the state. And he's absolutely right. You have Minnesota's Housing Stabilization Services program was eliminated as of October 31st as a result of the large-scale fraud of revelations of schemes that allege laundering millions from the state's taxpayer initiatives. That also included a housing assistance program, a federal child nutrition scam. I mean, you're talking about over $1 billion, Medicaid fraud, all of this by mostly overwhelmingly Somalis. So I think they need to go back. All right. It's as easy as that.